Hi, and welcome back to a podcast over a convenience store, talking Twin Peaks. I'm Joe Fremming from the Joe Down. With me, as always, is Paul Muad'Dib from Cast That Movie. And
Hello.
yeah, say hello, Paul.
Hello. Sorry. Hello. Hello. Hello.
And if you've been listening, you know that we are now in the getting into the weeds of season 2 of Twin Peaks. And we're going to do episodes 3 and 4, The Man Behind the Glass, and Laura's Secret Diary. And Paul, I've been thinking about this. I think this season, especially episode 3, I'm going to be swerving from. I'm going to be heading into Joe Down territory snark. This episode 3 is not good.
So, all right. I would agree with you. So this particular episode, just to kind of give some statistics of it, was written by, excuse me, was directed by Leslie Glatner for episode 3. For episode 4, it was directed by Tom Holland. This one was written by Robert Ingalls, and we will see that he kind of takes a step back, and some of the other writers start coming in, and then and actually the episode 4, which was um, Laura's Secret Diary, was written by Jerry Stahl, Mark Frost, Harley Payton, and Robert Ingalls. The ratings for number 3 were at a 13.7, which is a huge drop off from the series start, which was at 19.1, or the season start, and was so poorly received that the follow up one was 12.8. Yes, I think you should go into the snark. I will try to play devil's advocate on some of this, but it was funny. As I was watching it with the wife as well, she's seen these with me. She watches this with me, and even she made the comment as we were going through looking at these. She's like, "There are things that I forgot about these episodes just because they weren't that interesting," and I'm like, "Yeah, uh-huh." So I'll let you start with your snark. Let's get it. Let's you do Joe Down, and I will play the fair guy here that I do in the Cast That Movie. Go for it.
Yeah. So episode 3, The Man Behind the Glass. This is an alarming episode in that it paves the way for a lot of the stuff we end up hating about season 2. And the reason is it's a lot of B, C, and D plot, which to me seems like a terrible idea to be following up with the 2 Lynch directed episodes that came before it.
I would agree
It's
with that.
it's so it starts off all right, but look, there's a few things I hate about this episode. One is the callback to Just You and I by James. We'll get that in the next 2 episodes.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Uh,
That song is playing in the background in both episodes at certain points.
uh, Nadine's super strength. um,
Mhm.
oh God, there was another thing here. Oh yeah, Dick Tremaine.
Oh,
Okay, look, this is where I'm going more in analysis than a beat by beat here. And this is Joe Down territory. And that Dick Tremaine is one of the worst developed characters I think I've seen in TV, in that he's set up to be an antagonist to Andy, but the best antagonists are the ones that you can still kind of relate to. And he is just not a relatable character.
hmm
He's just kind of a scumbag, and it's not
hmm
the actor's fault. He's that's what he was cast as, and that's what he's doing with it. I just the whole Dick Tremaine, Andy, Lucy thing, I just wish never happened. And I wish it never happened with the atomic blast that invented Bob.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. See, I'm gonna go a little bit. I'm gonna start going in the beat because when we get to that point, I want to get to that point because I have a lot of feelings about Dick as well. The episode starts promising. Um,
Yes, very.
because you very promising. Ronette Plasky is suffering because she's freaking out, and you find out that someone put some chemicals. That Bob was there. Bob tried to kill her. He poisoned her. Or we assume he poisoned her IV and stuck the letter under her fingernail, and we now have RBT. And Cooper admits to uh, Albert and um, Harry that he tells him about the clues of the giant, which was weird, and that felt like again continuity issue because I believed he already did.
Yeah, he did. I
I think
believe
he did last two episodes.
Yeah, but we did get a nice snark from Albert here when he asks if there's any relation to the dwarf.
Any relation to the dwarf, and which is great. So yeah, so then you're kind of like, okay, this is cool. Then you have Donna. Then we go to Donna. Now,
Donna's Nancy Drew Mysteries.
yeah, this was interesting to me. I don't know if it was the makeup work that was done in that particular episode, if it was what, but all of a sudden Donna stops looking like she's in high school and looks like she's a 28-year-old fucking reporter. Like I noticed there was some severe age in my mind to her. Like, I'm not buying that you're a high school student anymore, Donna. And you get Harold, and Harold is a fun character.
I love Harold. Reason Harold is one of those characters. It's like it also kind of Twin Peaks was pretty progressive in showing there's different people out there, and like they treated them with respect. And Harold is agoraphobic, and I've known people who are kind of like that or who had like a degree of that where they, anxiety is so overwhelming they can't leave their house. So I like Harold actually. I think he's actually one of the better developed characters in the show.
Yeah, yes, and he has his arc, and we'll get into that. And he, yeah, I think he's one of the more better developed characters. Interesting how he came out of nowhere in my mind in this one, but at the same time, it works. And you could tell there's kind of this thing going on between him and Donna, which is kind of B plot shit.
Yeah, but Harold also has a lot of like the cool thing about Harold is he's actually, even though he's stuck, he's gonna always be trapped in the B plot of everything. Twin Peaks, even in Fire Walk with Me to an extent. He holds keys that are definitely A plot, and it will get into it the next episode. But he is the gatekeeper of Laura's secret diary.
Yes, and that comes up pretty freaking quick. And yeah, he is he is central. It's weird because he has like this relationship thing with Donna, but the information he holds is very A plot, or is intended to be A plot. Let's put it that way. And I think had the show not gone the direction it had to go, I think he would have been more important. And so then we find out that he sent the letter, he called her, and that Laura told Harold to reach out to Donna if anything ever happened to her. And I feel like he was supposed to give the diary to her, and he's been stringing Donna along because he's interested in Donna.
Yeah, and he's agoraphobic too, so he doesn't have a lot of visitors. I can see him also using that as an excuse to, he can't go outside, but he can allow people he trusts. And just through Laura's diary and being friends with Laura, I think he trusts Donna to an extent where he's comfortable inviting her into his home.
Mm-hmm.
Although
yes,
because Laura Flynn Boyle's a fucking train wreck.
Yeah. This feels like it should have been Maddie, in my opinion. I think it would have been more interesting had it been Maddie and not Donna, but that's what it is. So then we get to the Audrey story, which I honestly don't like this story at all. I don't like what they did with Audrey here. I think it's a waste. Although I do love that We get Michael Parks. We get Jean Reno, which is fantastic. But yeah, basically they're gonna hold Audrey because they know that they know who she is now, and they're keeping her fucking dosed up on heroin. And they're gonna use her to get to. Why does everyone have all these convoluted plots? They're gonna use her to blackmail money out of
their boss.
Out of their boss. They are gonna use this as a means to get Dale, and they're gonna kill her at the end anyways. They're like, well, we can't let her live now, which is like, okay, your plot sucks, you guys. Your plot sucks.
Yeah, and it's weird. It doesn't make any sense in that Van Horn's is a man of more means than Blackie or even the Renaults. So it seems like he seems like a guy if you're gonna screw around with, you want to have your bases covered. They don't seem to have that. This whole plot is it's interesting. Did you bring this up on purpose after we talked about Laura Flynn Boyle here, Paul? Because I have a feeling Laura Flynn Boyle's the reason why you got this stupid plot.
Yeah, I kind of know it all links up, right? Like, yeah, absolutely. I did bring this up as a reason why, because it goes right into it, because it's like, okay, we have this hero story with Laura Flynn Boyle, which doesn't feel like Laura Flynn Boyle should be involved in it. And then we got the Audrey Horne fucking story that doesn't feel like that this should be happening at all. Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is fucking asinine.
Yeah, it's the what blackmail. So their plot is to blackmail Ben and get a federal agent. And I'm sorry, but there's no way this would even realistically be a
right.
thing. Like, right. This is so stupid. Like,
it's really, really dumb. Like, why would you ruin your drug business? Why would you ruin the brothel business? Why would you do these things? This is just stupid. As soon as they found out, honestly, like this should have been solved very early in the first season, which I feel like it would have had we not had Laura Flynn Boyle fucking issues, where Audrey would have just been kicked out of the fucking brothel. Like, fuck you, get out of here. Because she was going by a fake name. They didn't know who she was. She wasn't following the fucking rules. Blackie made it very clear early on that if you don't follow the rules, you're fucking out. So, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then the motivation between Jean Renault is that Cooper killed his brother, and that's not even... No one even thinks Cooper is responsible for the death of Jacques. Like, what? Where did this come from? Like, I was really confused by his rationale here.
Well, yeah, because they're investigating the death, right? Like, everyone knows they're investigating the death of Jacques Renault. So it wasn't Cooper that killed him.
Yeah.
And,
there's no reason for Jean to be thinking this. But he thinks it until he fakes his death and becomes Esteban and gets into the national criminal syndicate with Bill from Kill Bill. But that's all like canon in my head.
Well, yeah, no, and the other thing is that, well, yeah, he's basically playing the same character, right? Yeah. And
everybody else just I was watching this episode and I realized Michael Parks' accent sounded weirdly familiar. So I found the clip of him playing Esteban in Kill Bill and I forwarded it to Paul.
Yeah, and it's the same character. It's the same accent. You find out, he ran the brothel for how many? It's the same fucking character. So yes, I think you're right. Twin Peaks, somehow Quentin Tarantino annexed the Twin Peaks world into his Tinoverse. So good for Quentin Tarantino on that, which now is a whole nother fucking thing that's going on because that gives us another idea. But it's so frustrating in this because again, it's just, he makes the point of also saying that his brother Bernard was killed. Okay, so why aren't you investigating? It's very easy to find out that was Leo that killed him, right? So why the fuck are we going after Cooper? Like, this is a plot that has no thread and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it makes less sense to me than the things that go on in the Black Lodge. At least I can wrap my head around that logic. This logic, I just can't. I
Yeah,
don't
no.
understand this. But let's get away from this for a little bit. We kind of skipped over, so I want to go back because the fingernail. There's RBT is under Teresa Banks, Laura Palmer, and now Ronette. These little pieces of paper that are forced under. We get this information, and we also have information on who shot Cooper. And I love it was with a James Bond gun. Was it the Walter PPK?
Yes, it was the Walter PPK.
And Albert's being Albert. He's snarking away, and then he just gets on Harry's nerves, and like we get this spiel of nonviolence and how he's like conscientious objector to violence and all that. It's just like I love it because it fits with Albert's character.
Yes.
It comes out of left field though.
Yes.
Like he knows he's being an asshole, and it's just he can't help it.
Yes. He oh God, I want to pull it up. I had it written down.
Yeah, because he quotes Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and that he doesn't.
This is it. He says because he's gonna get punched, and he's like, is there anything I can do? And he goes, yeah, you can learn to not drag your knuckles. And he goes, he grabs him and he goes, well, I will admit to a certain cynicism. The fact is that I am a naysayer and hatchet man in the fight against violence. I pride myself in taking a punch, and I'll gladly take another because I choose to live my life in the company of Gandhi and King. My concerns are global. I reject absolutely revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. He puts on his glasses. I love you, Sheriff Truman. And he walks out, and it is so, so awesome.
I mean, this, just knowing the Albert we get in the return and this Albert, I really wish he would have gotten a spinoff. I could just watch Miguel play Albert on a TV serial or a movie or whatever. I just love this character.
Yes, and this just gave so much more depth to Albert. Yeah. It made him such more an intriguing character. So, like I said, I mean, this episode didn't bother me as much. Like, I know there's a lot of bullshit in it, but the fact that there was still more of the A plot moving in the B plot, like, yes, looking at it.
Oh, hold on, Paul. Hold on, because sandwich between this great scene and then like the bomb that comes with Leland coming in. We get Dick Tremaine showing up and talking to Lucy. This is my problem with this episode, in that we get interesting things and then we get like the dullest crap that I don't give two shits about.
Well, and this should have been, we'll get to it in episode 4, because the Dick Tremaine story should have ended real fucking fast. He should have been in and out, and we should have gotten we'll get to that.
His character should have been done when he offered Lucy the money for the abortion.
Exactly. Exactly. Full stop. End of the story. I'm like, okay, Dick Tremaine's gone. So yeah. So let's back up just a minute, because just a step, because I want to get to the whole Leland Palmer thing. Leland is being, had been nuts, and he needed to find his way last episode because he knew who Bob was. He recognized Bob. And he goes to the police station and says, I know that guy. He lived next to my parents' summer house in Pearl. Well, he was the neighbor of a neighbor.
Yeah, there was a vacant lot.
Yep.
So there was his grandparents' house in Pearl Lakes. There's a neighbor to the side, but then there was the vacant lot, and then there was this other house where this man who fits the description of what he sees on that very creepy wanted poster, which traumatized Paul and I a great deal as children. He not only does he kind of recite the bit that we got from James, Yeah, he recites what Laura says to James as what this Bob said to Leland as a kid. This is like, I don't know, man. This was like giant red herring on the real killer of Laura Palmer, and like they weren't even intending it at this point. But I
Right.
think like they put the scene in here as if they ever had to be like, man, we made it so blatant in this episode
It's very blatant in this episode. It's super blatant.
because Bob would flick matches at him. You want to play with fire, little boy?
Mm-hmm.
And he flicks the match, and it happens to land right in the ashtray.
Yeah, yeah, and they play that sinister music, and it's like, yes, it's very, very obvious at this point. What's going on. Okay, now let's get to Dick, because at this point, Dick kind of comes in.
Well, he came in before, and then they wrap around it, and then
Yes.
they go to lunch at the diner. Where, long story short, Lucy and Andy had a break in the relationship where and then she started seeing Dick. They had sex, which freaks Lucy out because since Andy is sterile, that means Dick is the likely.
I want to dig into this. I want to dig into this a little bit because this fucking sucks. So we find out that Lucy and Annie had been together for a year and a half. And when we entered the show, they were together.
Yes.
But apparently in this fucking changing of the continuity, every Thursday for 3 months, she's been cheating on Andy by going out with this Dick. And they ended up they were going to go to he was going to take her to the Space Needle and have dinner with him in Seattle, but instead he took her to the pancake plantation where they had 2 bottles of wine and ended up fucking in the department store after hours.
Well, it's good to see Dick Tremaine is just as romantic as a 22 drunk college kid.
Yeah. I mean, and Lucy fell for it, and she's like, oh, it was exciting, but, and then, he's like, oh, I promised to buy you that dress, at my 20% employee, or to let you buy it, not even that he was going to buy it, that she could buy a dress with his 20% discount, and then she yells it better be a maternity dress, and admits that she's pregnant. The whole time you find out that he's been standing her up for weeks, that ever since the night that they fucked in the department store, he got what he wanted, he was out. I mean, it's just, he is such a one-dimensional character. He pretends to be, and there was kind of this, at the time, you got to remember, cultural, anti-globalization was kind of a big thing in the 90s, and, he's very much to be made out to be this British foreign fuck. And, he's just a very one-dimensional, as you said, so he'll be an antagonist to Andy. But the way he's written very, very flat. There's no depth to him, which you need in a good antagonist. And it's poor. It's fucking poor.
And this is a continuing thread that'll be in this season of Twin Peaks, especially. And they also go for quirkiness for the sake of quirkiness, which drives me absolutely up the wall. There was a reason why the quirkiness worked when it was spread out,
Mm-hmm.
And this season, it just starts globbing it on, and it becomes at times a parody of itself, which really pisses me off, and it makes watching these episodes that much more difficult.
It does. It absolutely does. So yeah. So then there's this whole fucking thing, and then Donna and James and Maddie are talking at the diner. And Laura Flynn Boyle comes in, and she
sees them holding hands.
And this is kind of this whole thing with this storyline, is that when you really analyze it and look at it, part of what was driving James to Maddie in a way was the fact that Donna was being a bitch and weird. And I don't think there was really much going on between the two of them per se. I think there could have been, but it in a way it felt more like it was just consoling to really, the people are going through these tragedies. Well, Donna's being fucking Laura Flynn Boyle behind the scenes and fucking up. It didn't click. At least to me? Tell me I'm wrong.
No, it doesn't click, and we've kind of hammered home that like she's the reason why there's no Cooper Audrey. It's also the reason why there's no James and Donna this season. And
Yeah.
I mean, like this is another thing that's sacrificed. Like James, like you know, he's not a well written character, but there's times where like I like him enough, and I liked his dynamic with Donna and the pilot a lot, and that there are these, like you mentioned, these two high schoolers going sharing a trauma of their best friend and girlfriend, and then Donna suddenly becomes a femme fatale who suddenly went from looking like she's 17 to like 30, and I don't know the
Yes.
amount of cigarettes Laura Flynn Boyle was smoking in real life, but
Mm, and Donna, I mean, Laura Flynn Boyle had some really hardcore control issues going on, and I think you can look into it. There were some drug issues, and it looked like she'd been having some hard living during that off point. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, and so like, and as controlled substances can alter whatever. So like
Your
we just get
appearance,
like a bunch of this
absolutely.
nonsense
Mm-hmm.
with just yeah, it's so bad. And so I do like that she calls James an idiot to his face, and then he has to be like, "What's that supposed to mean?" It's like
Yeah.
at least we get a good dig at James. I'll give it gets a point for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does get a point for that. And they're already setting up the precursor that James is fucking done because he makes the comment of how he wants to just get on his bike and fucking leave. Um, what else do we got? Okay, so
So
we go
all of
back.
this was the blackmail with Audrey. We've touched that, but no, we get to kind of like a another highlight of this episode, a thing that I like, and it's Philip Gerard. He's selling boots to Harry.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Philip is Mike. I usually refer to him as Mike because I usually forget that Mike is like he takes on a host, but it's like we're so adapted to him being Mike Gerard and Philip Gerard. This is like, yeah, I just usually he's selling Harry some boots,
Yes.
hamming it up. What's the actor's name again?
Al Strobel.
Al Strobel. He just
Mm-hmm.
he hams it up as the hapless shoe salesman,
Yes. And then he sees the picture of Bob.
and he gets discombobulated,
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yes.
and he doesn't know why. And we kind of do because we watched it, but this is kind of like what kind of gives us a glimmer on what happens with the lodge entities and their hosts. In that the image of Bob, I think, jarred Mike, who's in Philip. Like they're kind of one and the same, but I don't think they, it's not like Harvey Dent Two Face thing.
No,
In that it spooks him because he recognizes it, and then he needs his medication because
mm-hmm.
without chemicals, he points.
Without chemicals.
Chemicals are to keep Mike at bay, I think. It's like
Mm-hmm.
psychosis type thing. Not that Mike is like violent like Bob, he has been, but I think it's just because what happens is he needs to go to the bathroom. He's trying to shoot up his chemical. He does it, and then Mike comes slithering out, talking like, "Bob, I know you're here. I know you're close."
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we'll get more into what I think is going on there because it's obvious that Mike's a lodge entity, and lodge entities take, we've talked about it a little bit, go into people, but there's something very interesting about this particular. It seems it's almost somewhat symbiotic, and this one's not. And maybe we'll go into that. No, we'll go into that later because I know
I
we're
think
gonna.
it is symbiotic. I think there's like a relation between Mike and Philip in that it's not it's not like when Bob takes over and he takes over completely when he does. I think
Well,
Bob.
there's something different though with this, and I'll when we get to that episode, because there's a particular episode where I go, there is something different about this one than say with the giant, with Bob. There's something off on this relationship between Philip and Mike, and I'll get to that. And when we get to that, well, okay, we'll talk about it now because it's already kind of leaning to it. So he has to take, the medications. Philip knows this, and you find out later that it's this weird. Albert does a tox up on it, and it is something he's never fucking seen before. And Philip needs this to keep Mike at bay. And when Mike comes out, it's detrimental to Philip. The point where he's bedridden later and he's very, very sick and he's going to die. I don't know if maybe it was the cutting of the arm, it was the change of what Mike was from being a Black Lodge entity to to moving to the White Lodge. I don't know, but I feel like that, or maybe there's just a host issue there. But there is something distinctly different about Philip and Mike's relationship than say, because I even feel like that with Bob, that Leland we've learned is kind of a shyster lawyer. He
Yeah.
comes across as this really nice guy, but he's very willing to do terrible things with the horns. And I feel like that's him kind of gleaning off of the Bob and kind of feeding off of Bob.
Yeah.
And Bob's kind of giving him some, it's more of a symbiotic where it feels like with Mike and Philip, it's more parasitic.
Yeah, I don't, and I think Mike is since he's more of a lighter entity now. I think Mike and I have actually came up with that drug for Philip.
Oh, that's possible. Now that's a
And
great idea.
can't figure it out, and I think Mike knows the danger he encompasses, so that's why he kind of.
I like that. I like that theory. I think that's a valid theory.
Yeah, he'll come up with something that keeps Philip from, because he goes through withdrawals and shit when he's in full control. He just looks like, if you ever met somebody who just is detoxing, that's what happens when Mike takes over. It's really just.
And that's very, 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 very. Yes, I like your theory on it. I like your idea of what that is. Okay, so that whole thing's going on.
Shelly's talking to Harry. Cooper smells insurance scam. So
yes, yeah. Let's talk that real quick. Yep. And he definitely kind of scares Shelly because Shelly's not going to talk, and he's like, "Fine, go. It's insurance money." And and she's like, "What?" It really goes nowhere in terms of her ever coming back and wanting to talk about it. Then we get Ben Horn calling about no, I'm sorry. Cooper goes to the Great Northern and asks Ben about Audrey, if he's seen Audrey, and Ben gets very weird with him, even though he called him last episode to say she was missing and didn't know where she was, and then he kind of goes on this fucking tirade on Cooper about how Cooper wants to fuck his daughter and how he shouldn't, and it gets very awkward.
Laura Flynn.
Yeah, this is total Laura Flynn, and then we cut back to more of the Jacques Renault and Jean Renault, Blackie, and Emery fucking storyline, which is just atrocious. And then we get the Japanese man that we don't know. It seems to be following Cooper around, and it gets kind of off the rails, and then to go even more off the rails, we get the fucking Ed and Nadine.
Yeah. So
What?
Nadine is stuck at the age of 18 from
Oh,
the
so
trauma of the suicide. This is, again, with the finale of season one, they should have left her dead.
mhm.
Even though she gets a redemption in the return, and it's a really awesome
It
scene.
is a really awesome scene,
It's
but
just this is just it. And this is, I mean, these are just like these aren't even cracks. These are not full blown holes now into the problems of season two. It just took the first episode after Lynch
left for it to go
very scene.
completely off the rails, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that happens, and then, but then we get some fun stuff. The stuff I didn't mind, um, where they're gonna do hypnosis on Dr.
Jacoby,
Jacoby with
his
his
Hawaiian
wife.
life, and
Yeah,
his
with his
hospital
Hawaiian
room's
wife.
all decked out, and
Oh, God, I loved it. And she's got, fucking chakra crystals and shit. And he wrote up his own way of getting hypnotized. And what was her name? Ilani?
yeah, something
Yeah.
like
hmm And, they're doing he actually drops a really big clue because he says that when he was at Easter Park, he could smell the motor oil. And this is them, I mean, again, this is over the head blatant that, the you know, that Leland's the one that bludgeoned him. And that Leland is who we find out he is. These are some very blatant clues here.
yeah.
But he, through the hypnosis, sees Leland Palmer and identifies Leland Palmer. The episode ends with okay, so I have some problems in this with this episode, and just kind of some things that are occurring, and it was really, really blatant in this particular episode. So Donna has actually a really good scene where she argues and yells at Laura's grave when she's dropping off the lady slipper.
She's letting up all the frustrations that have been happening,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a really good line too, like they didn't bury you deep enough.
Yes. And then I'm guessing after she's done and on her way over, Maddie and James hug because James can't find.
They don't just hug; they make out, man.
Well, it wasn't. They were close. They didn't make out. They
kissed.
Out.
They kissed.
Fine. Okay, they kiss. But it
was Donna's sights.
Well, okay. Here's the thing it's the Palmer house. Nobody knocks in Twin Peaks. Donna, you got to realize that
they're all Kramer.
Yes. Donna totally Kramered her way into the Palmer house at what is probably 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and sees them. So then she storms off in her van. And
when did she get a van? Because the pilot, she had to steal her sister's bicycle.
Yeah, I don't know when she got this van. If I remember correctly, I think that's actually Snake's van, as I like to call it. Yeah. Maybe it's the Meals on Wheels van. That might be it. And it's just what the fuck. So then.
And we get to hear that that opening chords of Just You and I.
Yes, we do. And then fucking Maddie's bitching to Leland.
I love it.
I know, she's just she's bitching to Leland about how she just wants to be her and everyone thinks she's Laura. And then the police show up. Yep. Cooper and Harry show up and said the door was open. Okay, fine, makes sense. The door's open. They came in, and they arrest him for the murder of Jacques Renault. And the episode ends with Donna running to Harold because, of course, we have to have something going on there. And as she's creepily like molesting his flowers and stuff on the it was really weird. Um she finds a book, opens it up, and it says The Diary of Laura Palmer.
Secret Diary of Laura Palmer.
Yes, The Secret
Because
Diary.
there's the tie-in with the book.
Yes.
I don't. The book I think was released a little bit before season 2, if I remember right.
I was thinking about that because I was looking through it. I don't think it was because it in the book it says who killed her, and it says who Bob is in the
Oh, it
Secret Diary.
does. Let me see. I'm trying to see when this freaking thing came out. It's been so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it might. Yeah. It was published between the airing of the first and second season, so if you did read the book, then you would have known who killed Laura Palmer.
Yeah. That's
I don't
weird.
think anybody read the book because if you, this is one of the reasons why I never read it. It's basically a really dry life of a high school girl.
Yeah, if
It's
I remember correctly, it says who.
because it was published September 15th, 1990.
Oh no, that's right. That's right. There's pages missing in it.
Pages missing, yeah,
Yes.
because she does mention Bob in it.
Yes, she does mention Bob in it, but there's redacted missing pages. Yes.
Yeah, and that was
Yes.
kind of the thing. Like people bought it because they thought, well, we'll tell you who killed Laura Palmer. Well, yeah, we all know who killed Laura Palmer. Bob killed Laura Palmer, but we don't know what the hell Bob is.
Yes. Yes. But Lynch did say, now this is already happening because Lynch did say that the careful reader would know the clues and who the killer is from the diary, and that the killer's identity would be revealed in the second season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially basically it was revealed in this episode. If you're following the clues,
If you're following the clues, you already know. At this point, Lynch doesn't care because the studio said this is what has to fucking happen.
yes.
So, that's where this episode ends.
Yep.
So now, episode 4
It picks up a little bit. I like this one.
I liked this one more, and it opens with that very creepy, very Lynch style opening. Where you hear the voiceover as it's going through the really weird imagery. Of almost sounds like Waldo. Of Daddy, and Laura, and Leland. And it cuts to Leland getting interrogated.
Yeah, and it's just because this is like the overwhelm. I think it works because it shows us how overwhelmed Leland is.
Mm-hmm.
And like spoilers, yeah, he is the killer. But I think it's also like, the weight of the world's on his shoulders. He's guilty of so many crimes, and he's finally been nabbed for at least one of them. And if you know anything about Bob does not like to be contained.
No.
It's a big thing in the return is he does not want to be put in one spot.
No, he does not. So,
and for some reason, Doc Hayward's in on the interrogation.
Right. It's super fucking weird. Why is Doc Hayward involved in all this shit? I don't know. It's super out there. And then.
But Leland admits he killed Jacques because he went there because he was like, I wanted to, the man who killed my daughter. Well, how did you know? It's like, well, you guys arrested him. Kind of implicating the cops as like the reason why he killed Jacques, which is not a really good look, especially for a snaky lawyer type. Like, yeah, I see where you're going with this, Leland.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and as they're walking out, Doc Hayward talks to Cooper about his, Leland's. I'm worried about him. No parent should have to bury their child, and Cooper gets very snarky with him.
Oh, he snaps at him.
And then
murdered Doc Hayward.
Yep. and then he storms off, and then Andy,
Oh,
Andy,
Andy thinks he can pass a sperm test if he retook it like it's an SAT or something.
yeah. Well, he's been wearing the boxers, not briefs, like he was told. So yeah, so Doc gives him a container to jerk off into, and says, "I'll be waiting in the car." So Andy's got to fucking jack off at his office. So he grabs he grabs a
Flesh
flesh
world.
world. He grabs a flesh world, runs into Lucy. They bump down, and she was trying to get more coffee, and sees him and puts two and two together, and is just disgusted by him.
Yeah. And this is
And
season 2 does Andy and Lucy wrong. It does them wrong.
does him just wrong. And then he drops the fucking sperm cup um, under a
Under a chair.
bench. Yeah, under a chair. And as he's down there, Cooper sees his boots. And where'd you get those boots, Andy? But he doesn't say it that way. He's like, what are you doing, Andy? And poor Andy's like, I don't want to say. This is really personal. And
No, he asked, "What's that, Andy?"
yeah, what's that, Andy? And Andy's like,
referring to the boots. Andy thinks he's talking about his sperm.
yeah, thinks he's talking about the fucking jack-off cup. And Cooper puts two and two together that Andy's wearing the same boots that they found at the same brand that they found at Leo's. And he's like, the Giant said there was a clue. We thought it was the cocaine. It was the boots. And so then, how is then Ben Horn is working on a plan where he's gonna make more money or some shit. I don't know. Fucking Ben Horn's crazy. And then Jean Renault shows up and holds Audrey ransom for like $125,000, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
It was
before this, because it comes up again as MT Wentz is a travel writer coming into Twin Peaks.
yes.
And this is like, yeah, because it's a good thing, but the consigliere says that nobody at the paper knows who this is. If somebody works in the newspaper business, this is absolutely not true. This is something stupid people say.
Yes. It's dumb. I don't even work in newspaper, and I fucking know this, right? Like, this is just fucking dumb. Yeah, supposedly nobody knows who this MT Wentz is, which is just, I hate the MT Wentz storyline. And everyone's freaking out about it. So, yeah, the concierge tells Ben Horn, and Ben Horn doesn't care.
No.
He doesn't give two fucks. And, yeah, so he walks in his room. There's Jean Renault with the video of Audrey, and says he basically wants to be the new partner of that he's just the messenger, he's not involved in it, which is bullshit, and that his thing in it is that he wants to be the new partner instead of Blackie. So Jean Renault's already trying to fuck over Blackie, and that he wants Cooper to deliver the money. And rather than being open and honest with Cooper about everything, of course he fucking does his Ben Horn snaky shit. And so,
and again, Ben Horn's a man of means. Like, why? I mean, okay, so Jean Renault's in there with evidence that he knows where his daughter is. Call Cooper and be like, "Hey, this weird French Canadian man is trying to blackmail me. Let's get my daughter. Throw this man in the fucking Hague."
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just fucking dumb. Oh god. And then you go to the Double R, and they're freaking out about MT Wentz.
Yeah.
And
spoiler alert, it's Norma's mom.
Yeah, well, we'll find. We don't find out this episode though, Joe. Miss Quick, do take your Joe down Starkiness. Down attention. Yes.
I'm sorry, yes. It's just something I don't even give a shit
about. No, it's bad. I will give you that. It's like this is E plot at this point. Like this is so E plot because it doesn't have anything to do with anything. But it does. You know, you get the feeling though that Hank is gonna do something to Big Ed because he tells Norma to call Big Ed.
Yeah.
And do all these things, and then
and And this is what we call padding, people. And what they're doing is they're padding these episodes with so much stupid crap because they have to fill 22 of them.
Yep.
Instead of what they probably should have done is kept it as a solid 9-10 episode arc like the first season. But the network got greedy. They wanted more Twin Peaks, and they're getting it. And the quality is just going down and down.
And the viewership
get worse the more we.
and the viewership was going down and down. People did not care, and they were too far in the course correct at this point. Like this is what we were going to get. Thanks ABC. So. Then Ben brings in Cooper. If I seem a little like I'm drobby about this, you guys, because it's drob. But Ben brings in Cooper and tells him to be the drop-off man because of the special relationship they have. And then we go to Josie and Pete, and she's come back from Seattle, which we know she was involved in everything, and pretends that she doesn't know what was going on. Okay, great. Don't give a fuck about Josie. So then we go to One-Eyed Jacks, and actually something interesting happens. Apparently, fucking Emery brings Audrey over to Jean Renault because she was acting up, and Audrey's like, he fucking hit me. And so fucking Jean, who hates Emery, and Emery's just a terrible person, it looks like he's gonna, the whole audience, everyone thinks he's gonna kill Audrey, because he said Audrey can't live, and instead he kills Emery. And he is like gaslighting Audrey big time, right?
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't hurt you. I mean, this guy is doing some classic abuser shit to her, which maybe explains the return a little better with Audrey. And so, oh God, my notes are now to fucking Dick Tremaine again. Okay, this is where the Dick Tremaine storyline, we already talked about it. This is where it should have ended, because this is where the abortion conversation comes up. And essentially, but Cooper tries to work things out between Lucy and Andy, and this is where we find out that that they weren't actually like faithful, and it just Joe, help me here, because I'm getting in the doldrums, buddy.
No, this is just stupid. It's I don't care. It's Dick shows up with an envelope of money. He's like, yeah, let's take care of this problem. And Lucy's upset. And
she says, walk out of here, take your money. I never want to see you again.
And that should have been the end of Dick Tremaine.
That should have been the end of Dick Tremaine right there.
Because again, padding. They have to pad these things out because I don't know if this was supposed to be another like 9 or 10 episode season, and then it just ballooned out.
I don't know.
But probably just given how we get these pointless characters like Dick Tremaine and John Justice Wheeler, and oh Christ, there's so many of them, and they're just, none of them are interesting.
No, and so then Donna does her stupid fucking Donna Drew mysteries at the diner and is pissed off at Maddie and James, but says that Harold had a secret diary and that they're gonna fucking steal it from.
Yeah, they're hatching a scheme.
Why the fuck don't they just go to Cooper? I mean, what the shit? This is just fucking dumb. So then we get to the diner.
We skipped over, but what happens is, so Donna went to Harold's, and Harold, I straight up have Laura's secret diary.
Yes.
And
yes.
his excuse, Donna finally has a moment of clarity where, like, hey, I'm being kind of really stupid with this. Hey, Harold, let's bring this to the sheriffs. I mean, it's an ongoing criminal investigation. There might be something in here. And Harold's like, no, there's nothing in here. No. It's just, there's no solutions to be found in here. How does he know? He's a shut-in.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's...
And he reads a passage. It's just
God, that's
to Donna.
Oh, and it's awkward. Basically it's talking about how, it's flattering the Donna, and then it goes into Laura Palmer's big black cock gangbang.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, gangbang fetish that she has. Oh boy. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
To each their own, I guess,
Each their own.
I wouldn't be reading this to a 17-year-old girl though, but
No, and
that's
because
me. I'm not as perverted as Harold, I think.
well, and this is the thing. Harold used to be. I mean, Harold's got to be in his 30s, right? I mean, he talks about
Mid
how
20s to
he's
30s, yeah.
yeah, he's got to be because he went to school. He was a horticulturist. He had a career, and then he fell down. So, I mean, he's got to be at least in his late 20s.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
that's my take. And here's this 17-year-old girl, and it's like, whoa, Harold, whoa, you fucking,
He's
now
giving
now
her booze.
yeah, giving a 17-year-old girl booze. I mean, we're getting into Scott Pilgrim territory here, Joe.
Oh God. Yeah, we're getting into something here. It's so he's boozing her up and he's reading like perverted passages from Laura's private diary that he has happens to have.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
We
gross.
we'll find out why he has it in Fire Walk with Me.
Yes, it makes more sense in Fire Walk with Me, but things get retconned because it would have made more sense for him just to give it to Donna or give it to the sheriff at that point. But
Yeah.
regardless. So we glossed over this part. Cooper realizes that they need to have a conversation with Josie because it's very suspicious that she was gone.
Oh, the
The,
owner of the sawmill happens to vanish the very same day it bursts into flames.
yeah, and Cooper obviously knows this, and Harry's like, "You need to let me do it." So, you know, this is where we see part of the little bit I feel like of the secret history Josie, where she does something very classic, and I pointed this out to my wife when we were watching this, is that Harry starts asking her questions, and rather than being truthful, she makes it sexual. She tries to not answer things, and this is a very, very, very classic maneuver of socio and psychopaths, where they will utilize other means, including sexual charms, to avoid having a real discussion. And because Harry's trying to ask her questions, she's like, "Take me, just take me. What does it matter? Whoa, blah blah blah." And she bought this really expensive dress, and it's telling him to tear it. And Harry falls for it. Like we find out Harry's got a real dominant sexual preference because he tears that dress and goes right in the fucking Josie like a fucking freight train. So meanwhile, fucking creepy Asian guy is getting off watching it the whole time. Like that was weird. He's just he's just standing there, and we find out that's her cousin Jonathan.
Yeah, but doesn't she introduce him as her brother to Pete?
To Pete, it's her brother. To
Harry,
yeah,
it's her cousin.
yes, and that becomes important
But he's
later.
not the only creepy Asian we get.
Oh, we're
Because
gonna
we
go
get
into Mr. Tamajura now.
yes. Um,
Hey,
boy, there's a lot to unpack with this one.
I don't think we unpack shit until we get to the reveal. Uh, because this was a big deal. Because even in the credits, it's credited as the person playing Mr. Tamajuro is Fumio Yamaguchi. Okay, I mean that's the actor. So if you really want it to be spoiled, Google Google Fumio Yamaguchi. But this is very like you look at this guy, you're like, whoa. Lynch wasn't involved in this one when you look at the writers and the directors, but you go, whoa,
It looks
writing.
like Frank Booth's, like in Blue Velvet. Frank Booth has a very like just bad disguise.
Hmm.
It's like a mustache and a black wig and like sunglasses. And it's like they brought it back for this character.
Yeah, Mr. Fumijura is, but it's worse. Like this is some serious, like hardcore. stereotypical Japanese shit. I mean, this looks like a samurai. Like a fucking
And when you find
British
out who plays it,
samurai.
it makes it even worse.
And that's
It
yeah, we're gonna
makes it
get
even worse.
it's so worse. Like this is something that like you're like, whoa, okay, that's really that could be toned down. I mean, fucking what's his nuts from fucking Revenge of the Nerds would have said this was over the top. Um, God, what was his name the Asian dude in Revenge of the Nerds?
I don't remember, but yeah, it's when you find out who plays this character, it just, dear Lord, like even in 1990, this was bad. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. Takashi. It was Takashi in Revenge of the Nerds. Takashi, the guy would have been offended by this. Um, so this person shows up, pays in cash, and they immediately think this is MT Wentz, right? Like she called, like you need to go to the Double R and blah blah blah. And then what else do we got going
The
on?
judge shows up.
Oh yes. Judge Clinton Sternwood, who would have been slapped with about, who would have been not a victim, but who would have been called out in the Me Too movement if this happened now. Holy shit! Gets a hug from fucking Lucy's. Calls her tall drink of water. Has a what's her name? Running around with him. Sid, yes, Sid. Ooh, and everyone's in love with Sid, and they travel together to Winnebago. Like this guy is something else. But
The last of the frontiersmen.
the last, yeah, as he says, but he's actually has a really nice, conversation, things like that. But it doesn't take away from that this dude is a total creep.
He's very problematic.
He's a very problematic.
Not just problematic. It's Mr. Tamaju or whatever.
Yeah, Tamajura. Yep.
But
Tamajura.
He is problematic.
He's a problematic character, and but he has some really nice conversations and gets with Leland, and Leland's again not really acting himself at this point, which is a tell. It's a big tell.
Yeah, this is the episode that's like, if you didn't, like, obviously when we first watched it, we didn't know, but then again, we were very little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, who knows where they were going to go with the season? These could have been more red herrings instead of basically like, oh shit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the episode ends with us seeing a whole new side of Josie, and Hank Jennings getting his ass kicked, and
by a blues brother.
It's
he gets beat up by the Blues Brothers' long-lost Asian brother.
Yep. I mean, when we watch it, I mean, when we break it down, God, it sounds like it was a terrible episode. But when you actually watch it, I don't know. Why did it feel better than the last episode?
I think just because Frost was one of the writers, so I think it flowed better.
Yeah.
I think it was like a little more interesting. Like, we got a little more of the Pearl Lakes thing.
Yes.
With, Hawk saying they can't figure out who lived in that house, but no Robinson ever lived there. We have Cooper setting up with Harry to go to the One-Eyed Jacks, and it just flows better. I think it kept me more in tuned. The last episode was just so bad.
Well, we missed a big thing too. So after Cooper has a conversation with Ben, he goes to Harry and asks for the best bookhouse boys.
Yeah.
Bookhouse boy, because he has to do something and he doesn't want Harry involved. And which doesn't make sense because, again, he has all these things at his disposal with the FBI. He could have easily called up Gordon Cole, and Gordon Cole would have helped him on something. But regardless, so he goes to the Double R. He tells him to go to the Roadhouse at 9:30, and the best bookhouse boy will be there. And of course, it's Harry.
Yeah.
And so, he's going to pour him a drink, and it's assumed that he's telling him everything about what's going on with Audrey.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it is what it is. I like seeing more of the Bookhouse Boys and giving Cooper and Harry, because I really like the dynamic between Cooper and Harry. So like when we get more scenes with those two, I'm all for. But yeah, since it's Audrey's unfortunate plot.
Mm-hmm. And
It's
and this is one of those things where you really, I mean, yeah, hindsight's 2020. But Joe, I mean, I would have to think that even you and I now sitting, I mean, had we been sitting in a writer's room with these people, would have said, "What are you guys doing? This is some horse shit."
yeah, and this is and this is one of those things that it became like TV shows we have now. We've talked about like showrunners usually stick around through the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing, and at this point, Lynch and Frost were pretty hands offish. They gave them, from what I understand, they gave them like a blueprint, and then like the idea was like when big things were going to happen, that's when Lynch and Frost would get back in the game.
Yep.
Uh, and it suffers. The show suffers when you do that. Like, and that's one of the things. Like the first season worked because it was so self-contained. It
Mm-hmm.
was so streamlined, and you didn't have a whole lot of fat. And Lynch and Frost were pretty hands-on with that whole season. That it flows, and then like there's 22 episodes, and Lynch has other things he's got to be working on. Frost does. It's just the nature of this and that. They're not getting whatever. They're not. The idea of a showrunner being one consistent person,
Mm-hmm.
it's like at this time it's kind of foreign. It doesn't happen too often.
No, especially on a serial.
Chris Carter kind of after this with the X Files uh, became kind of like made that kind of a more popular thing. So he ended up like with Lost, you had Lindelof and Damon, and
Mm-hmm.
Arrested Development, you had Mitch Hurwitz, Community, you had Dan Harmon. Just these shows that like keep it consistent. They had the one person who steered the ship, and Twin Peaks did not have that.
N- no, and a lot of that was because of the backdoor bullshit that was going on. I mean, Lynch was so angry he made a movie. He's like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go make a movie. I'm so done with this."
Yeah,
And so when they were gone, and they by the time they came back and it saw what was being written and what had been done, um, and we're kind of discussing the heavy things. They were written in the corners, like, and you could kind of see, like, especially when Frost is part of the writing credit, like he is in this one, like he is in Lonely Souls, like he is in episode 16, and then he doesn't come back again till episode 19. It's off the rails by the time he comes back.
yeah. It's the inmates started running the asylum. Like at this point, Lynch and Frost haven't left, but they're not too far from it with
Yeah.
frustrations. Uh, there's even we've been kind of wrong. I've been reading more interviews. Frost had no problem with the reveal, where Lynch did, and that was kind of a contention between those two. So you have the two showrunners button heads on this, and then
Oh,
the
okay.
network button heads with them, and then you have
Mhm.
the egos of all the actors who are now on this huge hit
Yep.
show, and
Yep.
they're having to write around their characters because they don't want to be. I don't want so and so working with so and that it just became a perfect storm of bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, to give you guys an idea of what's coming up here, when we get to episode 7, so we just did 3 and 4, we're going to do 5 and 6. Then we're going to do, I think that's how we decided to do it, right? We're going to do
Yep,
5
yep.
and
And
6
we'll
and
do
then
Lonely Souls as its own.
as its own. That is the last time. Okay, episode 7 of the season. That is the last time we will see Lynch in any of this
Yep.
until episode
22.
22. until the episode 22, the final. So Lynch is basically done. Now Frost is only doing one. His brother wrote one of the episodes, so I'll give him that. 3, his brother, 4, 5, 6 episodes out of all of these. And it just, they brought in a new writer. They'll bring in a new writer, Trisha Brock, that will start doing some writing of the second season, Barry Pullman. I mean, by the end of it, this is a show that bottomed out at one point. The viewership was like 7.4, and it had a 20. It started the season with a 19.1 million viewer, and by the end, it was down to 7. Where unfortunately, even the season finale or the series finale ended at only 10 million. I mean, that's how bad the writing gets. That's it's.
And they're kind of bringing in they're also kind of bringing in at one point Diane Keaton directs an episode, so they're bringing in celebrity directors, and I mean, yep. It's not Diane Keaton's fault that she walked into the darkest moment of Twin Peaks. And she does what she has to do with it, but...
Yep, James Foley directs an episode. The father of Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal, Stephen Gyllenhaal, directs an episode. It's... Oh, boy. The director of Body of Evidence with Madonna directs an episode.
Yeah, it's just, they're bringing in... They're throwing... Yeah, so what happens, this season... I think this season was troubled at the start. The more Paul and I have been investigating into it, the more it seems like this season came in as a giant clusterfuck.
Giant clusterfuck.
Where before we're kind of saying, Lynch and Frost weren't even on the same page coming into this season.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was reading this too, where the Mulholland Drive originally was going to be a spinoff.
Yes, it was.
It was going to be Audrey Horne Goes to Hollywood.
Yep.
And somebody interviewed Mark Frost, and he's there was talks of it. And he said, when David was talking about it, he's like, I couldn't work with David for a while. He's like, I had to stop working with this guy for a hot minute. Their friendship really deteriorated during this whole period, and it took a long time for them to actually get back. Even though they did On the Air after this.
They did do On the Air after this, yes.
But they just, I think that this season fractured them in a bit. Mm-hmm. It's success. A lot of it you can just say it's a success of the first season, and you have two people who are very different and their own ideas.
Yep. Well, hell, even I read an article, even The Secret History. David Lynch straight out said, I haven't read it. That's Frost's interpretation of the history of Twin Peaks. That has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, which is, there's also people, Lynch says that. A lot of the shit comes from Lynch's handler, Sabrina Sutherland, who will she'll shit on Frost whenever she has a chance, it seems like. I believe Frost and Lynch hashed out the return and a lot of the secret history stuff that Frost put in the book. I think that's a lot of stuff that was between the two of them. I think so. Lynch was totally unaware of what was in the book of secret history and the final dossier. He just said what Lynch said is, I haven't read it.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure he knew what was in it.
He had to have. I mean, because obviously I feel like especially the final dossier was already written by the time the return was, even before the return aired. It just wasn't going to be released until after the return.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that too.
Obviously.
The end of the final dossier wouldn't make sense if you've never seen the return.
Exactly. So I have to think that they were on the same page, and
I think they were. And I think it's a lot of just shit stirrers or whatever. Like Lynch's like, yeah, I read it, and he's, he can, when he says like that's Frost's version of Twin Peaks. Lynch is also the person who will say Twin Peaks is like 70% Frost and 30%.
Mhm.
So it's just like you gotta take what he says with a grain of salt sometimes. Like,
I
he's
think this
also a
might be.
very feisty guy when he's not in a mood to talk about
He
certain
is. He
things.
absolutely. Have you ever seen him in an interview where someone tries to bring up Dune?
Yeah, or when they ask him like the meat, like that. There's a famous where he says Eraserhead's my most spiritual film, and the interviewer says, "Can you elaborate on that?" And he's like, "No,
No. Yeah.
that's just it. That's full stop. That's just the kind of guy he is." It's just,
Yep. So have you watched? And I don't want to stir up shit with other Twin Peaks fans and things like that. Have you seen the 4 hour this one gentleman on YouTube that said Twin Peaks Explained and did a 4.5 hour explanation about how the whole show is around television? And
yeah, I've seen
have,
it. I don't like the host. I find him obnoxious. I'm sorry if you're listening to this, but it's just like it's a personality type that I just don't gel with. So when he's talking, I grit my teeth, and it's just like kind of know it all.
hmm
But I'll admit I don't know everything about Twin Peaks, and I can be, and if I'm wrong, point it out. Where this guy he releases like rebuttal videos when people point out when he's wrong, and I find that just when you take such a hard stance and like I know what this is about on a show that I doubt even Lynch and Frost know 100% what it's about, then we have problem. You have problems, man.
well, and my thing on it is that I get where he's trying to come from. And I can, at some point, look at it and go, I can see it through your lens. However, I don't agree with the hype, with the whole thing about it being about this anti-TV things of that nature.
There's certainly
Because
elements of that. There's certainly the most blatant would be the opening scene of Fire Walk with Me. The
yes,
sledgehammer through the TV. That's Lynch's most blatant thing of that pretty much sums up how his experience with Twin Peaks was.
exactly. I think there's element, and I think that's what he's getting fixated on. I don't think that's what it really is about. I mean, when you look at all of David Lynch's work, even Dune to an extent, because really Paul Muad'Dib and Paul Atreides from Dune are there's some duality there. Everything with Lynch is about yin and yang, is about duality, is about this. I mean, what you see, I mean, I think the most glaring thing, and we'll get into it when we talk about Fire Walk with Me, is how opposite the town and the FBI and everybody is from Twin Peaks, right?
Yeah.
There's there what it's the iceberg effect. And I think Lynch is very, very, very upset. I mean, if I were to look at it, I look at it all as Lynch's. It's his way of taking the world and saying it's an iceberg. The top you see is the 5-10% that people let you see. What the things that fascinate Lynch is that 90% you don't get.
Yeah, and that's apparent in the opening scene of Blue Velvet. You see like this idyllic neighborhood, and then you start seeing like the bugs under the ground.
Right. And what I really feel like Twin Peaks very blatantly, and when I think when you get caught up in the imagery and the mystery and the strangeness of it, but when you pull the lens back and look at it for what it is, I really think that's really what Twin Peaks is about how people's double lives in their normal life is killing them.
Yeah, because everybody in the show has a double life.
Yeah. And
Even
that
like the most like likable Big Ed has a double life.
yes, and that what is happening with that double life? It is eating away at him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's as easy and as simple as that. I don't think it's this big thing where it's TV and blah 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 and blah blah blah. Now the return is kind of a different story, and I have to separate the return from this because The Return is its own thing.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that, but what we're talking about now with all these subplots don't fucking matter. And that's made very apparent in The Return.
Yeah.
Lynch did not give two shits about anything, really, that happened after episode 7. All the way to when he came back on episode 22. He does not fucking care.
No,
it was.
absolutely.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but there is nothing that is addressed from basically when we get the reveal. All the stuff that comes back in The Return is everything from that episode prior. Anything after, except for the season finale, and even that is dropped in The Return. I correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I can't think of really anything from season 2 that's brought up. There is a callback to Wyndham Earle's uh, computer cell phone thing, and that's because Mr. C has it.
Yes.
First episode, but I think that's more of a continuity thing, which is odd since Lynch doesn't really give a shit about that. But I think he probably thought it was like a cool thing that they had, so he just reused it. But yeah, but even then, like a lot of the B, C, D, and plots of this whole second season are just ignored in The Return for the most part. We only get Norma and Ed, really, and then a little bit of Shelley and Bobby.
Yep, that's it.
The rest of like, we get, of course, Jacoby, but I think that's because Lynch and Frost were having a little fun with Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, absolutely.
All these other characters. I mean, Audrey is a bizarre footnote.
That pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah, it pissed Cheryl and Finn off, but it's like, Audrey just didn't fit into that story. It's just
no.
What they were trying to do with that, but we're getting off the rails on that. We can talk about that.
Yeah. Well, no, absolutely. But yeah, I just
like everything from this season for the most part, except for the giant.
Yes, but again, that's kind of
the white horse that. Yeah, Lonely Souls, and then like the first episode are probably the only things that are called back.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything really. I think a little bit's called back. Like I said, anything up to Lonely Souls, going from Lonely Souls and prior, and then again, part of Beyond Life and Death is brought up as well. But really, everything between those two things, you could tell that Lynch did not give a fuck and wasn't even going to fucking address it. He was done with it when it came to Return. So I don't.
You have to remember, Frost co-wrote that too, and I don't think he gave a fuck about it either.
No. Yes, absolutely no. And what he did give a fuck about is in Secret History. But no, I just wanted to bring that up because it was just one of those things, because we're starting to get into some of, like I said, some of the doldrums. And at this point, really, I feel like the whole symbolism, the story of what Lynch was trying to tell is very apparent by episode 4, by Laura's Secret Diary, that it's off the rails. This isn't what, and I think the viewership showed, at this point that only 12 million people tuned in because they weren't getting what they were getting in the first season.
Yeah. And that was, a more streamlined, coherent story. Like we brought up, this thing starting to get bloated. There's a lot of fat in it. There's a lot of pointless characters, and it comes from, and like I said, Lynch, Frost are button heads.
Mm-hmm.
Lynch and Frost are button heads with the network. Button heads with the cast, and yeah, I think it was just a perfect storm.
Go ahead.
It's rough. It's rough especially when you have 22 episodes and you have to fill that, and you're not really interested in a lot of this stuff. And you can tell Lynch and Frost don't have a lot of interest in this CD plot. They threw it in there as kind of like, just kind of like, like the fill in the gaps and whatever, and kind of make this town interesting and give you characters. And now they're just adding characters for no reason.
Well, and getting back to that, this is something I meant to bring up, and that came up in this episode. And they started the draw from the what we glossed over last season, which was the Invitation to Love. Now Blackie has a sister that's with Jean Renault.
And nobody cares.
And nobody cares. But it's like, I'm like, okay, so this is whatever their names was, Emerald and Sapphire, whatever the fuck it was. From I mean, they started to actually draw from the fucking fake making fun of soap operas that people in the first season to start creating filler in this episode. I mean, in this season. I mean, that's pretty fucking
feeling like a soap opera instead of a kind of a spoof of a soap opera.
Yes, the writers started making it an actual soap opera versus the cynical nature of what it originally was intended. And that is very apparent by the end of this particular episode.
And considering like how the tone was set up, because we brought up the first episode, it looks like it's going to be a much darker season than what we got in the first season. And then it just seems like, and then that spun out from that vision into, hey, let's make a wacky soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a jarring. So if you compare May the Giant Be With You with Laura's Secret Diary, it's like, whoa, how did you go from the tonal shifts here?
Yes, and that's exactly. And again, 100%. And people really started to feel that right after that first episode, And I don't know. I don't get it. It is what it is. So, well, next week we got The Orchid's Curse and Demons.
Yeah, I'm reading the synopsis for Demons, and it's, oh boy. Shelley and Bobby, welcome home party for Leo. At least we get Gordon Cole.
And if I remember, we're gonna get some interesting things about Bob in Demons.
Yes, I'm pretty sure we do.
Mm-hmm.
But, yep, yeah. And then we'll have Lonely Souls, and then we're going to be miserable for a couple episodes.
Lonely Souls.
Yeah. Well, no, we're going to do something after Lonely Souls, and then we're going to be miserable until we get to the
we'll be all right, I think, because we're going to have Lonely Souls, and then we're going to have Drive with the Dead Girl, which is an interesting episode.
Yeah.
And then we have Arbitrary Law, which is an interesting episode. So we'll be good through episode 9, and then episode 10, that's when it's going to start.
11 episodes before it picks up.
What's that?
We just have 11 episodes before it picks up again.
Yeah. After episode 10, after Dispute Between Brothers, which is a great episode, and Secret History makes it even better. It's a lot of fuckery. We got 11 episodes after that is going to be rough. But yeah, no, but I think the highlight's going to be Lonely Souls.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was an episode that really screwed me up as a kid. I'm pretty sure it screwed you up as a kid.
A lot
of kids got screwed up.
You know the story already about how fucked up that was for me, and so I will tell that story when we get there. Meanwhile, I do want to touch real briefly upon what we had been talking about early on when we were bringing into it was the Jacob Wetterling, and at this point, you guys, it's just nothing is solved. It's we talked about briefly. It's very, very quiet. And I think Lonely Souls is the perfect time for us to revisit that and discuss what happened 25 years later.
Yeah. And yeah, so we'll talk about that in Lonely Souls. And then, unfortunately, we'll talk about what happened 25 years later. And then obviously we won't really be discussing that a whole lot until the return,
Mm-hmm.
which happened to be an oddly timed return for Twin Peaks.
Jesus
Considering
Christ.
when we get,
Yeah.
it's like like 6 months before, 7, 8 months before we
Yeah.
find out who kidnapped Jacob Wetterling.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll talk a little bit about that and like more about that when we get to Lonely Souls. But at this point, it's just terrifying. I mean, we're getting news stories every day. I still remember this. My parents would watch WCCO in the morning and NBC at night for the news. And every morning you'd see this, the pictures of um of
The kidnap, the
of
suspect.
the suspect. You would see photos of Jacob Wetterling, and even at this point, it had gone on for so long that they were starting to try to, bring up like what he could look like
Yeah.
with longer hair, with shorter hair, Jacob Wetterling, and yeah, I mean, it's just a fucking tragedy.
Yeah, and then a few years after, Twin Peaks was off the air, we actually start seeing computer generated how he's looking if he was 16 and then at 20, like how he'd look at as an adult, because nobody knew.
Yep.
Nobody knew if like he was, somewhere, anywhere, like this is what he'd probably look like. It was weird because he just vanished. That's the scary thing about Wetterling is he vanished. It wasn't like we had a body, so it's horrifying, but there's conclusion to it. We know what it is. Jacob's body's not found until 2016.
Years later. And to give you an idea, um, it was I think if you remember about the time that Jacob Wetterling was kidnapped, they came out that mini series called "I Know My First Name Is Stephen" about the boy that was kidnapped and was raised, and I really think that Patty, that's where her heart was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were hoping for the best, but I think most people were under the assumption like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the police basically were convinced at that point, but obviously family, if you went through that, I couldn't imagine as a parent going through that. But yeah, I really think that's where, that's why you still have these composite sketches of what he could look like or computer generated pictures of what he could look like when he was 16 and 20 and things like that, because I really do think the family wanted to believe that he was kidnapped and brainwashed and believed to be, that'd be another one of those stories like how I Know My Name Is Stephen, and that's based on a true story. So I think they really, really felt that. So that is why
that hope gave a lot of good things, though. The Wetterling Foundation for Missing Children.
Mm-hmm.
And like all sorts of awareness. So I mean that it was horrible, and like I couldn't imagine the pain they went through not knowing for that long.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, so that's why we haven't really discussed it. It's not that it's not interesting to us. It's not that it's that. It's that at this point in our childhood, it's like they've given up except for the family and the news stations and things like that.
The case just went cold.
The case went really cold.
I mean, and the weird thing is like in St. Cloud, speculation just kept growing, and like rumor mills, and like even up until like I remember people coming in. I was working at CD Warehouse as like 2007, and people were coming in like still talking about it, and like they had there's this pedophile family,
Yes,
skirts and shit, and like you're hearing all this stuff still. So
yep,
it's pulling up from time to time.
Oh, it was something that was never dropped, and there was always theories on it of who it could have been and what it was, and you'd hear stories, of other cities that would have like a murder or a kidnapping or things like that, and people would go, it's the same person. It's the same person that got Jacob. Guaranteed, they get the person that got this kid, they're gonna get the person that got Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah, it never
never ended with Wetterling. It went right. We would hear things and we were hearing rumors from. Just think of it. We were hearing rumors and speculation and all this from when we were 9, 8, 9, and 10, up until our mid-30s.
Yeah, when it was finally solved, and it was solved. But but this was something that never left the social consciousness of the area.
Yeah, and we were hearing it and for 20, over more than 20 years. So most of our lives we're hearing nothing but, we were hearing speculation all the time. So it never left. The speculation got more bizarre and people's theories got even more off the rails, but
100%.
But yeah, it was still on everybody's mind. It's just, that was, I just couldn't imagine.
No, I mean, I can't imagine as the family going through it. I mean, having lived through it from a third party outsider perspective, that was enough to fuck me up. And it was enough to fuck you up. It was enough to fuck us all up. And so that's, again, that's why we haven't really discussed it these last couple episodes, because again, at this point there isn't much there. Like I said, we'll talk about it more on Lonely Souls, and then when we get to the return, I think we'll really dig into it and really go into the whole what was the 25-year journey.
Yeah, because there's a lot to unpack with that, especially with what happened in those 25 years, and then there's a lot of drama.
There's a lot of even after. There's a lot of drama. Yeah,
suits and everything. So
we'll get into that. But all right, Joe. Well, do you want to take us out?
No. How about you, Paul?
I'll do it, son of a bitch. All right. Well, once again, you can catch us on the joedown.blog. You got the podcast about the convenience store. You got the obvious Joe Down. Joe, you started the Fast and Furious podcast.
Yes. It's Joe Down month. We're going through all the Fast and Furious movies we haven't reviewed, and we've only reviewed the 7th one and a spin-off movie called Hobbs and Shaw. So this whole month we'll be doing twice a week, releasing podcasts, going through the au revoir of the Vin Diesel-led franchise. It goes off the rails. I love it. It's not highbrow in any and I will never admit that Fast and Furious is a highbrow franchise, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And then, so that's what we'll be doing this month. What's coming up with Cast That Movie, Paul?
Cast That Movie, we will be recording, by the time you're listening to this, we'll be recording that day. It will come out next week. We will be doing Rocky and Bullwinkle, the movie, for our recast. And which you'll love because it has your guy from Seinfeld in it, Mr. Jason Alexander. And our recast will be the origins of SNL, which is very fascinating. So I have some information on that. So that will come out next week as well. So yeah, you could. Go ahead.
One more thing. So this is typically on your podcast, but I forwarded it to you today. So. What's some casting news here, Paul?
Oh, for son of a bitch.
I don't think we can wait until next week. That's why I brought it up.
So, all right. So, yeah, I'll give you some casting news. You know this. As some of you may know, Tiger King is going to be made into a series, a scripted series. Kate McKinnon was already done to play Carol Baskins. And they got their Joe Exotic. It will be none other than crazy ass himself, Nick Fuck Cage.
I was so excited when I saw that after hearing you guys talk that casting news last episode.
Yeah,
Because you guys
yeah.
were bringing up some good ideas who could play
I
Joe
know.
Exotic, and it was like, man, they went total. They outdid you guys.
They went for batshit. I am not excited about that casting. You'll hear about that. We'll be recording tomorrow, so you hear about that in a week. I'll be shredding that apart. So, yeah, everything's at the Joedown. You can find us on our YouTube page. Your podcast, will just so you guys will know, the Joedown blog for the Fast and Furious will be on Spotify. So if you don't have an account, make a Spotify account. Hear that, you want to hear that. I listened to it this morning, and even though I will totally admit that I have avoided the Fast and Furious movies, I couldn't help but just laugh throughout the podcast that you guys had done. So we'll be back next week for this one for the Orchid's Curse and Demons. Until then, my advice is, if you guys ever have to fucking shoot or find out that your abusive spouse is shot and paralyzed, let him go to jail. Don't take the insurance money.